Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing really well and welcome back to my podcast, Life of an Artrepreneur. So if you listened to my podcast, I think 2 weeks ago now, you'll know that I was prepping a lot over the past few weeks for my workshop, which was at Stanley House. The workshop was a few weekends ago now, and it went really, really well. It was such a lovely group of people who came, and it was a mixture of some artists and some non-artists. Some people were quite creative, some people had never really drawn before. So I think for me as a teacher, it was actually quite a nice challenge to kind of adapt my teaching style and try and explain things in a different way to suit everyone and their different kind of skill levels. So I thought this episode could be a reflection all about my workshop, what I learned from it, because I've had quite a few messages from people asking how it went and if I'll be planning any more. And I also put a video on YouTube the other week as well, which was all the behind the scenes of what I actually prepped for the workshop and some things that you might want to consider if you end up putting on your own. So in terms of planning, don't underestimate how much goes into putting on your own workshop. If you feel swamped with work anyway, adding this into the mix can be quite overwhelming. So I kind of made sure that I gave myself plenty of time on the run up to the workshop to get everything organised, so I wasn't stressed at the end. And, it just gives you that reassurance that everything's going to run smoothly, knowing that you've organised and planned everything to the last final detail. So I've made notes on this because I literally never remember it all off the top of my head. But some of the things that you need to plan are things like location, making sure it's easy for people to get to. Room hire, make sure it's got natural lighting, make sure it's a nice space. The costs of everything like that. Ordering the right quantity of materials like pencils, paper, erasers, sharpeners, plastic sleeves, little bits that you don't really even think about. Designing a ticket, deciding what price you want to sell the ticket for, deciding what you'll be drawing it, filming it, timing it to make sure that you can get it all done within the time frame. Putting it on your website with a description and the terms and conditions and writing all that out so it's, it comes across as an exciting event that people want to buy and come to. Marketing the workshop through social media and email marketing, keeping people constantly informed. You want to draw all the line drawings so people aren't stressed about getting the proportions accurate. It should be all there done for them. Designing a workshop booklet that might have the drawing at various different stages so they can kind of refer to that throughout the workshop if they need that extra bit of guidance. So that takes a while because you need to do all the descriptions, make sure everything looks neat within the booklet in terms of the layout, printing the booklet and putting them all together, making sure you print the right amount, printing all the reference photos, make a list of everyone's names, who's attending, decorations for the table, whether it's flowers or your artwork on a little easel kind of displayed at the end, packaging all of that into the car, going to the location and setting everything up, making sure you get there in good time before anyone arrives, making sure there's a projector at the venue as well. So I take my desktop tripod and I had my phone above my drawing, which was live streamed to the TV behind me so people could see what I was working on a much larger scale. I think that definitely helps, and not all venues have that. Think about the date and the time that you want the workshop. Is it going to be an evening class? Is it going to be on a weekend during the week? Is there going to be any refreshments? What's the cost of that? Is it going to be included in the ticket? How many? There's so many things to consider. So what I've just said there, make a list of it. If you're thinking of putting on your own workshop, write everything that I've just said down, make it into a checklist. And you don't have to be that in depth. You could make one that's a bit more simple. But I feel like everything that I've just said is pretty much the main things that you need to consider and, really factor that into the work that you're doing already and plan around it. So you're not doing all of that last minute, because it is a lot. I got a lot of questions as to whether putting on a workshop is a profitable thing to do. And I think it all depends on how many people come to the workshop. And I think if you're like me and you've only done a few, but you're kind of wanting to potentially go down that route, it's very scary and overwhelming to put on your first few classes and have 50 people come. Because then I think with the quantity of people that come as well, there's also other things to plan around that. You might need a microphone so everyone can hear you. You might need a bigger room, which is at a different venue. You might need to bring a few people with you to help you with bits and bobs, setting up and everything. But yeah, I've done 2 workshops now. One was in London, there was about 7 people. And then the one that I've just done was in Blackburn. So it's not that far from me, about 20-minute drive, and it's quite easy for people to get to. It's kind of off a main road, it's near the motorway, but it's also in the countryside surrounded by really nice ground. So I feel like that was a bit of a selling point in terms of the venue. So in terms of profit, I feel like the last 2 that I've done and maybe the next 2 or 3 that I do I'm not going to be rolling in it, put it that way. But you kind of need to build that up, because it's kind of, I'm seeing these first few workshops as a chance for me to kind of build my confidence and figure out the kind of people that come to these workshops and how I can improve with each one. I'm also seeing it as an opportunity to bulk up my materials so I can do more workshops, and every single time I'm not having to stock up with more and more and more pencils, because hopefully I'll have them in stock, along with other bits like erasers, sharpeners, paper. I bought some MDF boards as well for this workshop to put on the table for people to work on. So if we end up working on a table in a different venue somewhere that's kind of rigid, then that MDF board's going to keep that nice smooth surface to work on. And I feel like the more you do anything, the more confident and more comfortable you feel. So I've started with like 6 or 7 people, but I feel like now I could probably do like 15 people and still feel confident doing it. I think initially, if you've never put a workshop on before, you think, oh my goodness, 15 people is so much. But the room that I did the workshop in, it was quite big, so it could have fit a lot more people in. I had 10 tickets available and 6 sold, so I could have made a bit more profit if the 4 tickets left sold. But it's just one of them things. I feel like it might have been the location. It's the first time I've put one on. People don't really know what to expect. I was sort of not really knowing what to expect. And I was really proud of myself anyway for selling 6 when it's like the first one that I've put on completely by myself. But the first few that you do, you're going to be spending a lot on materials. But as long as you're kind of making that back with your ticket price, then it's fine. But obviously the more people that attend the workshop, the more profitable it is. So I feel like the more that I do, the more comfortable I'll feel kind of, offering 20 tickets instead of 10 tickets to the workshop. And also I feel like when you've done a workshop, the people that have attended, this was the same for my one that I did in London last year as well, they all, messaged me or said to me at the end, they really enjoyed it. They feel like they've learned a lot. And if I did put on another one in the same location, then they'd love to come. So you might get people that become a bit more regular and they want to attend more and more and more of your workshops. But then again, with that comes more planning, because obviously you can't draw the same subject every time. You're going to have to switch it up here and there. But yeah, I think it is a profitable thing to do if you stick at it and you eventually get more and more people coming to your workshop and you teach bigger classes. And like I said before, the room that I taught the workshop in was quite big. I could have fit way more people in there. And I feel like when you get going with it, there's no difference really between 6 people and 10 people, or 6 people and 15 people, other than the length of the table, or it fills out the room a bit more, and then you might need to, move around a bit, help more people one-on-one, factor that in as well. But in terms of like feeling confident enough to teach that amount of people, there's not really that much difference when you get going with it. I think it's very easy to kind of get in your head and think, oh, like 10 or 15 is such a big number. But I teach way more people than that online. But I suppose online you can't kind of see them all in a room. If I saw nearly 200 people in a room, I'd be a bit like, I think it would be a bit overwhelming, like a scary thought. But I mean, aim high, and I guess that's where the money is, doing these big workshops. And a lot of people sell them now as like a retreat. So spreading these workshops over a weekend and maybe, going on a little staycation somewhere with like a small group of arty people. There's loads of different ways to kind of market it, and there's loads of different ways to profit from it as an artist, and you're still giving people that value. I feel like paint and sip classes and workshops are becoming way more popular because people would rather do that with their afternoon than kind of, spend it at home doing nothing or doing what they usually do. Like, it's just something a bit different, and it's a chance for them to be creative with that guidance and kind of learn something a bit different, pick up a new hobby. So yeah. And if you told me like 5 years ago that I'd be teaching workshops to a group of people in a room and explaining what to do, and they travelled specifically to come to a workshop that I've put on, I probably wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't believe that I'd be confident enough to do that, and I wouldn't think that people would actually come and like attend one of my workshops and pay for a ticket. And like, it is wild, isn't it, really? But it is a really good thing to do as an artist. And I also think being a self-employed artist, I've said this a million times before, but you are working on your own quite a lot of the time. And although I'm teaching online, it's not the same as in person. Although online is way more profitable, in person you get that like one-to-one connection and you can really help someone one-on-one. Online I suppose you can do as well, but it's just not really the same. So I think it is nice to have a balance and maybe do mainly online tutorials that's that more kind of stable income, that's easier to reach a wider range of people, and then maybe do a few workshops on the side so you're still having connections with like other creative people in person. In terms of the location, my workshop was at Stanley House Hotel and Spa in Blackburn, which I said before is quite easy to get to. It's kind of off the motorway, off a main road, and it's surrounded by really nice countryside. It's got really nice grounds, and the room that we were in kind of overlooked all of that, which was really nice. It was a really bright room, like ceiling to floor windows. It's definitely one to consider for future. I know that the people that came to the workshop said they really enjoyed it and they'd probably come again, so that's always a positive thing. You don't want to do one kind of straight after. I think for me, one every sort of maybe 2 or 3 months would be realistic. So I might do one around Christmas time, but I don't know, probably won't because I'll be so stressed on the run up to Christmas with everything. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. I've also got 2 planned for January in London, in the Green and Stone Gallery, which is where I did my first ever one last year. And that again is a really nice location. And the good thing about it being organised through a gallery is that they kind of take care of all the marketing, the tickets, providing the materials, setting everything up. So that's obviously a huge help, because for me to get down to London with all of the materials that I've got anyway is quite a lot. So I don't want to be getting there and sorting everything out for another hour. So yeah, they do help with so much of the organisation of the workshop. And it went really well, the last one that I did. So I'm doing 2 more in January, sort of mid to end of January, which I've already been planning for. I already know what I'm drawing. I've already drawn it and recorded it. So this is what I mean about giving myself so much time to plan. So keep a lookout for that if you're down in London. But obviously I'll put it on my stories and stuff nearer the time once it's actually been fully organised and the tickets are up and running. I also think in terms of location, obviously London's great because you've got the tube, so you can go anywhere in London and you're literally straight there within walking distance. There's such a huge art scene in London. Like there's loads of creative people down in London and in every city. I feel like it'd be really good to do workshops in Manchester, because Manchester isn't that far away from me. Again, I'd have to keep going with my materials every 2 seconds, but it'd just be so much easier for people to get to, and they don't have to drive. They could get the train from wherever they are. And there's loads of different locations in Manchester. Like I could do it in a little cafe and have a smaller class. I could do it in a bar and do more of a paint and sip class or a sketch and sip class. I feel like the opportunities are endless when you've got access to all of that stuff in a city. So we'll see, but I did really enjoy the one at Stanley House the other weekend. And like I said, the room was really, really nice. It was a good size. One main thing that I learned from this workshop, or like the main bit of advice I can give, is that it definitely helps if you take someone with you to kind of help set everything up, help pack everything up at the end, and help film little bits throughout, because obviously you want to give everyone who's paid for a ticket and travelled to come to your workshop your full attention. So you don't want to be like teaching a workshop but then also filming little bits. You want to give everyone your full attention and teach them and give them as much value as you can, without feeling like, oh, I've got to film a bit of this and a bit of that for social media or YouTube or setting up a time lapse. Like, you don't want to be faffing around with all that. You just want to get stuck into what you're doing and have the whole workshop about the drawing. Conrad came to my last workshop in London and this one, so he helped me set everything up, pack everything up at the end. Obviously helped me on the train with all my materials and stuff when we were going down to London. He helped do all the technical side of things, like sorting out the projector and getting the live stream up and running, because I know what I'm doing, but for me to figure that out and get everyone's place set up with all the pencils in the right order, make sure they've got the photo, the line drawing, the workshop booklet, make sure it all looks nice and neat. I want to be spending my time doing that not faffing around with the projector. So he just gets on with that, and then before I know it, it's up on the screen and I'm like, right, at least it's working, I can breathe. And then whilst I'm teaching the workshop, both ones that I've done, he's just gone round and filmed little bits throughout, which I can then use the clips for like a YouTube vlog so you can actually see the workshop. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't if I just went on my own. So yeah, it definitely helps kind of taking someone just to help you with all of this stuff like that and to de-stress you. The last thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of what I've learned from the workshop is refreshments. So because Stanley House is basically like a wedding venue, they've got the set prices for all the drinks and everything like that. So I could either prepay for the drinks or I could wait and see what people wanted and pay at the end. And I made sure that I was selling the tickets at a high enough price that it would cover the drinks and I'd still make a bit of profit at the end. So when I was promoting my workshop on social media, I said they can either get a like welcome glass of Prosecco or teas and coffees if they'd prefer throughout the workshop. But then when it actually came to the workshop, I thought it's quite a lot of faffing around to be asking what everyone wants to drink and sorting that out with someone to go and get them and bring them and pour them, and there's drawings everywhere. We don't want spillages. So in the end, I just got the welcome glasses of Prosecco. So it was just easier. So people had the option. If they wanted it, they could, but if not, they've got water. And I don't really think it's an essential thing. As long as you've got water or whatever, it's fine. People haven't come there to have a drink and have a cup of tea and a chat. They've come there to draw and to learn something. And I found that, you know, the Proseccos did go down quite well, but not everyone had them. And I think the 2-hour workshop went like that. Like it goes so quickly. And when you're concentrating and your full focus is on what you're doing and you're learning something new and figuring it out, you're not really bothered about drinks and refreshments anyway. So I think just having like the basics there is good enough. So if I was to do it again, I don't know if I'd include the Prosecco or not. I think it was a nice little added touch, but it's not essential. But yeah, overall it went really well and I was proud of myself for doing it. Got some really lovely feedback at the end, and yeah, everyone seemed to really enjoy it. So I'm definitely gonna plan a few more, whether that's around Christmas, but probably not, or in the new year, more likely. Starting off with those 2 in London. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed this episode about what I learned from my workshop. So hopefully that's given you some things to consider if you are thinking about putting on your own workshop and kind of what to expect from it. So if you've been watching on YouTube, then please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to see more art related content like vlogs and future episodes and tutorials. And if you've been listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then I'd love it if you could leave a review. Also, keep sending me any requests for future episodes. I've got quite a list now to get through, all with really good ideas. So thanks for all your requests. Keep them coming. And yeah, hope you all have a lovely rest of the week. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode.